Good morning. Today we are going to talk about some differences and similarities of the indigenous Wayuu and Boruca tribe. First of all, we are going to talk about a difference, and it is the location of these two tribes. The Wayuu community are indigenous people that inhabit the Guajira Peninsula, the most northeastern part of Colombia, and the Boruca are indigenous tribe from the southern Pacific of Costa Rica, located between the Talamanca Mountain 20 kilometers from the Republic of Panama. Second, the similarities and differences relate to culture.
For the Wayuu culture, the most important factor in its story is the waving that they make with their hands, while for the Boruca culture, the most important factor is the place where the legends that are shared and told generation after generation originated. So, in the Wayuu culture, they have a very important myth, which is the explanation why the art of waving is a tradition in this country. It also relates the events of an orphan girl who was taken in by a young hunter, but she suffered abuse and rejection by the hunter sister. In the midst of her long lines, the girl was transformed into a beautiful maiden who took out of her mouth the threads with which she wove chinchorros and guayucos. The hunter sister made him believe that this work had been done by them, but she discovered the truth and of the fabrics as well as the qualities that she possessed. So he turned his sister into bats. When he tried to hug the orphan girl, she turned into a spider and got lost among the branches of a tree, but she left the fabric. So he, in the midst of his nostalgia, saved this valuable art for future generations to have the opportunity to see and learn how to make these types of work of art. So, on the other hand, in the Boruca culture, the establishments where the legends originated, which are shared generation after generation, are considered sacred and receive much respect from the inhabitants. Mm, so, it is worth mentioning that before the arrival of the Spanish, the Boruca and neighboring tribes believed in a good witch they called Sibu, and the beliefs have not been completely lost. At the beginning of the 16th century, the Spanish induced Catholicism, and today the majority of inhabitants identify themselves as such.
Fair handicrafts are a very important similarity for both communities.
In this part, the two communities share a very important handicraft characteristic that has been relevant over the years, and although generations continue to evolve, this type of handicraft remains intact and are the fabrics. Burqa women are traditionally taught to weave. Although today men are taught as well, the Boruca community has a long tradition of handy dyeing colored yarns that come from natural sources such as the leaves of the sangria tree, the bark of the chickpea tree clay, indigo plants, and occasionally the ink of a mollusk. After spinning locally ground cotton yarn, they use a loom to weave the yarn into bags, tapestry, purse, and much more. Although both men and women are infused with the knowledge of learning to knit by hand in the Boruca community. The wooden mask, of which there are many varieties in the styles, are also recognized. This skill is a trade transmitted for many centuries, and its magnificent representation can only be seen in a 20 Boruca mask, which are the pride of the people because they are used at the end of the year festivities as a cultural tradition. On the other hand, the drums that they manufacture in this community are made of hallowed cedar or balsa logs, with cowhide stretched on both ends. Although originally instead of cowhide, they used wild boar skin with strips of the same leather. Now, in the Wayuu culture, weavings of stylized geometric figures are made which represent elements of the natural environment that surround the daily life of the Wayuu. So, the more complex the figures, the greater the value of the piece. In the Wayuu community, they weave on a fork loom. However, the variety of handicraft that we find in this community are quite a lot. For example, the Wayuu indigenous people in La Guajira have gained world recognition for their famous Susu backpacks. They have a variety of woven objects such as chinchorros, hammocks, Wayuu backpacks with leather, resistant cosmetic bags, the famous handbags, and handles with geometric designs. In addition, the Wayuu men make palm leaf hats appropriate for days of intense sun, blankets, and guireñas or espandrillas. For the Wayuu people, weaving is more than a cultural practice and is inherited from the ancestor. It is a way of conceiving and expressing life as they feel and what it and the Boruca it's all the knowledge that their ancestors contributed in addition to this art. It is the most valued there.
In the fourth and last place, we are going to talk about the difference that these two tribes have in relation to language. The language plays a very important role in these communities that over the years have maintained this type of custom as their native language, a very particular reason to determine that the language they speak is in danger of extinction in these communities. On the one hand, the mother tongue of the Wayuu community is Wayuunaki, which has 600,000 speakers and however is at the risk of extinction. The Wayuu or Guajiro language is an Amerindian language native to the La Guajira Peninsula. It is spoken by about 400 people in the Colombian department of La Guajira and in the north of Venezuelan state of Zulia. This language belongs to the linguistic family Arawak. It should be noted and clarified that the Arawak language is a macrofamily of language that is related to Arawak language, and throughout this language they manifest abstract and realistic thinking, in addition to the relationship with the environment and the origin of life. The language is the circular axis that they make up the Wayuu philosophy. Without the language, they feel they are prone to lose identity. On the other hand, the Boruca language is spoken by some elders who speak the Boruca language and thus belong to the generation of the last century. Preservation is an important part of the Boruca's effort to maintain their identity. Over time, Spanish became the dominant language and the number of inhabitants fluent in the native Boruca language decreased. The last native speaker of the language died in 2003 in such a way causing that the highest point of the language has been in its own fault, and therefore causing its imminent death. There are currently only 3 semi-speakers of advanced age, those who grew up having a really strong contact with the language and the community is not really interested because of the relevance it has now.